what the immediate need is there about telling their stories. Yes, ma'am.
In other words, within that country, they want to have this horror, but they really don't want it shown. I mean,
Oh, the film is shown in Turkey now,
yes,
but it's not sort
but
of.
it's sort of like was a rough thing for him to get the stuff shown, because it's not. It's it's just part of the system there that this would happen, and yet he managed to make a movie out of it to show it. But if he didn't do it, then it wouldn't have been shown.
Well, there are other films being made. There are many films made in Turkey by Turkish directors about Kurdish issues. Kurdish directors make their films in Turkey. Bahman Gobadi makes films in Turkey.
But
So these films are being made.
It upsets the Turks, and the whole system is upset when they see that people
Well,
are treated this way.
My personal take on it, because I don't belong to Ministry of Culture or any other government organization, but I think the people in Turkey, in terms of embracing each other, they are further ahead than their government or political parties who represent Kurdish ideas and ideologies. Because Turkey is not segregated, like Kurds and Turks live everywhere. I think the largest Kurdish city in the world is Istanbul, if you look at Kurdish population.
Just to follow up on the second part of my question,
Please.
When I was there, I mean, the Kurdish culture was very repressed. It was illegal to perform in Kurdish or to, teach it in the schools. The language was forbidden in the schools, etc. I mean, it was truly a very oppressed thing in Turkey. So I think a lot of the assimilated Kurds, and I knew a lot of Turks at that time who had Kurdish backgrounds, it was kind of that uneasy existence of, being proud that they were Kurds, but not, doing it very publicly. So how has that changed? I'm assuming
this has
there's
all
been some
changed.
liberalization, right?
Sure, there's the liberalization. It's all changed. They can use their language. They can, even the ministry is publishing books in Kurdish, and they're publishing direct dictionaries in Kurdish, Turkish. There's a state television broadcasting all day in Kurdish, and I understand it's very popular in Iraqi Kurdistan. So, but now the point is whether they should have university educations in Kurdish or high school education in Kurdish. Even the new laws would allow private schools to educate children in Kurdish. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think Yilmaz Güney points to a very interesting conjecture of Kurdish issues and the current political climate in Turkey. We've been talking about a greater liberalization in terms of the identity politics, Kurdish being allowed in schools, Kurdish music being on the radio, etc. At the same time, we're 1 year after Gezi Park, and we've had tear gas in the movie, we've had tear gas again, and we have tear gas every day in Turkey now. So how do those two things go together? So there's a much more benevolent view towards Yilmaz Güney's raising of Kurdish issues, but at the same time he's talking about a police state that is still very much in place, although perhaps the political sides have changed from the CHP to the AKP now.
I think the government didn't change from CHP, People's Republican Party, to AKP. The Republican Party they never won an election since 1950. So there were many coalitions. Now the new government, of course, Gezi Park, a year later, there are other incidents in Lice. They were just blocking roads, and there was some unruliness. But one interesting thing, this year in May 1st demonstrations in Turkey, I looked at 6 major German newspapers. They had first page news from Istanbul and May 1st demonstrations, and they had even bigger demonstrations that was suppressed with much more force in Hamburg for May 1st in Germany, but they didn't publish them. So a lot of people in Turkey, they believe that there is a certain bias in covering events in Turkey. They riot, but from where I came from, in Washington, D.C., you can have placards, but you can have sticks attached to them. And I couldn't set up a tripod in a demonstration in D.C. because I have to get permission 2 days before from the police. So we should look at ourselves also before we try to find answers to events happening in other parts of the world.
Well, I think we are looking at ourselves,
Yes,
and I fully
absolutely.
agree with everything you say about the American prison system, but we have a responsibility to also look at other
Absolutely,
places.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well, I mean, one more question. I think we can continue this on a one-on-one basis there's no other pressing screening schedule that give us, we are here.
So, 30 years later, what is Güney's legacy? Is he well known? And as you say, his films are now being shown in Turkey. During his lifetime, he was largely, banished.
Well, last year, a package of 8 Güney films, they were restored, and new prints were made by the Ministry of Culture, and I created a program in the United States and Canada, and it was shown in 10 different cities.
And what about
It was well received.
Is he more recognized now in Turkey after the fact, or?
People have memory lapses. They moved on to other things. When they mentioned Güney, that would be fun, and they said, "Oh, Güney, he's a great, revolutionary leader, charismatic filmmaker." But they want to show a film, and very few people would attend. And as a matter of fact, when they released this film in Turkey, as I said, they released it in sort of the periphery of the city in some small theaters. People still didn't go. Major cinemas didn't pick it up for distribution. And initially, when he was becoming famous as an actor with his charisma and the stories and everything, they didn't find screens in Istanbul. They said his films are for the other parts of Turkey where they like this kind of fight stuff and gangster movies and quasi-westerns.
I think the film shows, it's upsetting. I think if it was shown in Turkey, it would create riots.
It's very
It'd be
upsetting.
upsetting.
I totally agree.
If they showed it even more, it would create riots. It would awake these people, be upsetting.
Well, let me ask a question to you. The French critics was very harsh on this film, and they didn't like it, they didn't understand it. Why do you think they sort of ganged up on this film, saying that this is no good?
They want to show how dictature act. That's why they want to see it. We are against this kind of treatment. I'm French and I am against it.
Again, Mr. Carmen's, one of the films that he supported to be made was both Italian films and French films about prison conditions in Italy and France. So Mr. Karmitz also believes in this kind of revolutionary sort of excitement that he not only produces these films, last 40 years, he distributes them and he owns theaters. And his last theater opened in La Grand Palais, which is in a similar, like a 200-seat theater, just like this. We have to see these films, we have to discuss these films. I think anyway, he doesn't offer us a solution. He becomes a witness. We have to take this message and carry it with us. And I think we are also cruel, basically. We are racist, basically. We are sexist, basically. It's an everyday fight to change this, not outside, but also inside. And these films give us sort of a way out and reinforces our self-correctness, I should say. I think we have to wrap it up, but I think thanks for coming on a beautiful night like this, and